Welcome back, guys, to another great episode of the Geek Centurions. We got ourselves good old
Name's Joe. How's it going?
and man who needs a haircut himself. Though I can't complain because I need one too. Kelvin, Daniel, how's it going, buddy?
It's been alright. It's been a while. How's it going?
That's been good, man. All these new announcements coming up with all these games. It's bound for us to at least talk about something. We couldn't get you on for the PlayStation one, but you know what? Let's still talk about PlayStation. I know you like the whole PlayStation 5 look.
Like, at first I was kind of turned off by the controller, but after seeing the console itself and everything with the aesthetics, I'm starting to get into it a lot more.
My issue is that I don't like it laying down.
I mean, I think the only console I ever had on it sideways was literally just the Nintendo Wii and the Wii U.
Fair enough.
I know you could do it with PlayStation systems, but you need a stand, and it feels a little off.
No, and Joey, you and I are straight Xbox, Nintendo. Might get a PlayStation depending on the money.
Depending on the price point of the PS5, yes.
Yeah. Which is still a thing that we all have to think about. The reason I'm talking about all these systems about Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo is that if you're out of the loop, there is a strong brand loyalty within the gaming community, especially when it comes to the PlayStation and Xbox fans. You many would know the console wars, and we're here to talk about that because at the time of this recording, Xbox is coming out with their thing, or already came out, and Sony's supposed to be coming out something next month, and so is Xbox.
It's that time of the brand new next generation hype train, and it's the classic Sony and Microsoft, PlayStation versus Xbox.
Blue versus green should be red.
Nintendo's red, but Nintendo has just questioned itself across the way, while the other two big console companies are fighting. Nintendo just sort of in its own little pool playing by itself.
Nintendo is laughing. Nintendo is like that little that dude is like cool with everybody. He's like, hey, how's it going, guys? Let's go. And when Nintendo and Sony are still talking about each other's mamas, like, no, dude, calm down. So, I mean, Daniel, you yourself, who's at least dabbled with one of the two consoles, you've seen this brand loyalty, have you not? This sort of console war.
Plenty of times, and still goes on to this day, apparently.
Yeah, it's surprising because, for me, I felt like it was the most strongest when it was the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. I feel like that's when not only is when we got our whole online gaming stuff going on, where it's really started hitting its peak, and now it's kind of grown. That's when people really started getting into the whole, oh no, PlayStation has all this and Xbox has all that. And as we, continue to grow, some of us have matured. I know I have. Daniel, I know you have. Joey, of course.
Yeah.
You get that. You live with me.
Yeah.
So you got to put up with me and my shit. So we've kind of just accepted the goods and the bads, but apparently some people don't. Some people just like to argue. So like I said earlier, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the side for PlayStation. What's their deal and what's decided, and then Xbox. And just why are they so attached to these brands, and the kind of toxicity that comes with it. Because there's stuff that I'm an Xbox Nintendo owner, but there's some stuff that I'm from PlayStation. I'm like, damn, I would like that, but I don't got the money right now. This is what we're talking about. So, Daniel, how about you start us off? What do you know about PlayStation when it comes to their fans, and why are they so defiant against the Xbox?
I mean, they're there since the beginning. It just came out of nowhere back during the PS1 era. It was supposedly just Sega versus Nintendo. And then
That's right.
Sony came out with a PS1 and at a cheaper price point too, compared to the Saturn at the time, which pretty much let Sony get into the gaming scene. And so over the years, we've seen them doing more of these things, and I actually don't know that well because I was mostly a Nintendo guy when I was younger, so I could understand why people would want to go with PlayStation instead of Nintendo back then as well. Because
Mhm.
being stuck with the GameCube at the time, I'm seeing all these cool games that I want to see that I can't play, like Kingdom Hearts, Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, all the cool stuff.
God of War.
Yeah, God of War especially, and I'm stuck here
Mm-hmm.
with like, okay, I have Mario, I have Zelda, Metroid, all that. That's cool. That looks even awesomer. There's blood and guts and shit.
Mm-hmm. Joy, your thoughts on the whole PlayStation?
Uh, yeah, I think PlayStation itself has a very interesting history. Coming out mainly because of like originally Nintendo like wanted like a CD like an add-on to I think the Super Nintendo.
Uh, Close. No, yeah, I think it was actually it was going to be called the Nintendo PlayStation, but that deal fell through, and then we got the CDI and those.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually Sony was like, we already went through the effort of like making a game console. Why don't we just make the PlayStation ourselves? And ever since, it's done a pretty interesting job. The PlayStation One has like a lot of great hits, especially with stuff like Final Fantasy VII. And
Which was originally Nintendo exclusive.
well, I mean, yeah, the Final Fantasy brand was usually always on Nintendo, but when the PS1's like graphics were like shown and all the polygons,
The squares.
yeah, and so it's a Square Soft, now Square Enix, it was like we can like now make a Final Fantasy game. It looks so fucking cool, and that's when they jumped the ship to Sony PlayStation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and plus, Nintendo was still using the cartridge format, and with the
Yeah,
format that they were doing, they had a lot more memory to work with compared to the limited space that the cartridges had at the time. So we were able to get games like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, you know, and even more titles that I could just pop out of my head right now, like Resident
Mm-hmm.
Evil, Silent Hills.
Mm-hmm. A lot of classics right there. And I like how, and Daniel, I gotta say, I forgot to mention that, we talk about Xbox and PlayStation, how they have the most, they're the current console war. If you really think about it, back in the days, before Xbox, before PlayStation, back when it was Nintendo, Neo Geo, Sega, Atari, they were always at war with each other. They're always trying to gain your attention. I think there was what was it Sega's? I think it was with the Dreamcast. They had a tagline,
Sega,
something.
what Nintendo?
That's the one. Our games you can when Nintendo got it. It's something like that. It's so it's been around forever, and now PlayStation's to come in because it's like we're talking about more of the current situation because I can't speak about the past. Um, yeah, PlayStation I think came out of you guys are right. They came out of nowhere, and they just showed off the impressibility that the PlayStation has, and that since has started a sort of a I can't really find the word to write this word to say it, but essentially, this whole family of games that you would relate to the PlayStation, especially from that PlayStation One era. People knew about Final Fantasy, but people didn't really play Final Fantasy until Final Fantasy Seven. You could never really get a full blown horror game until you get Resident Evil and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, don't get me wrong, Nintendo at the time was 64, right?
it was 64.
Okay. Nintendo 64, you had like Mario 64, Link's Adventure, I'm saying Link's Awakening, that's not the right game. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, you know, those games, especially the rare games like Killer Instinct, Perfect Dark, Banjo Kazooie. Yeah, they were great games. And they're like loved by people like myself, like the rest of us. But PlayStation had something that they couldn't. And Danny, I think you said it best. They were able to hold enough memory. And Joey, you said it best too. They showed what they can do. Like this is the next step of gaming. It's something you never see in like Nintendo. Because in reality, Nintendo at the time was more of like, what's the craziest thing we can do now with our games?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo at the time was still because it was still like, and like this Nintendo Sega thing was like also like it was like the Bit Wars, It was like the NES was 8-bit, and then the Genesis, Sega Genesis was like more 16-bit, and so then Nintendo came. I was like, all right, now we have our own 60-bit console, the Super Nintendo, and then Sega counteracted by adding the 36-bit add-on for the Sega. It was constant bits. Like how far can we push graphically?
In fact, you can still see that now with the specs that we see PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Yeah, but it definitely seems like that's sort of like less. It's more of like it isn't sort of like which console has like the best graphics fidelity. It's more like look what we can do on like these. Look what next gen games just look like now on both systems. But yeah, it's Nintendo. I think definitely dropped out of the whole like making things like graphic fidelity stuff. I think around after the GameCube, because like I'm pretty sure like the Wii U was the first HD Nintendo console, right?
It is.
Yeah, that's how long it took for them to actually get like actual HD on Nintendo systems, because they were more they switched focus and more like let's just get non-gamer people to play our games, and that worked just successfully. Yeah,
PlayStation. What was the game at the time when was it the Dreamcast where PlayStation 1 came out?
Yes, I believe so.
No, I think the Sega Saturn was the one that came out. It was
right. Dreamcast came after. Yeah.
Dreamcast came around the time of the GameCube. Am I correct? No.
No, yeah, because I don't remember when the GameCube came out. I think it was 2001.
Yeah, I think it was 2001.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was the last year the Dreamcast lived.
Yeah, because at that point it was just simply, Nintendo and Sony, and they've had the edge for a long time now. Now, there's gonna be a little nice, there's gonna be a nice little connection. Around that same time, around 2001, a new console was coming out that was already, getting, attention for being sort of like, I would say like one of the first, not the first Western games console. I think that would be Atari, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I feel like Atari would be. So there are a lot of gaming consoles that came out like being in the U.S. like the Odyssey.
Well, essentially this is a console made by a well-known computer PC makers, Microsoft, when they released the Xbox. Because now in 2001, not only do you have PlayStation 1 or 2, we're still on 2, right?
PlayStation 1. I think the 2 came out in like 2002.
That's right. PlayStation 1.
Around that time, yeah.
Yeah, we got PlayStation 1 coming out. We have the Dreamcast. We have GameCube. Now we have the Xbox. And the Xbox essentially, a lot of people didn't pay attention until a couple that it was released with a game that a lot of people come to love, Halo, which is literally the system killer for that console. Yeah. People bought Xbox for Halo. I mean, I never had the first Xbox, but I'm a Halo fan, goddammit. Holding a Master Chief helmet with signatures from. Yeah, put that back. But essentially, my point is, it became a very popular game, and that was a system killer. And for those of you who don't know, a system killer means if you want that this is the game, if this is a game you want to buy, you gotta buy this console. Which kind of leads us to now, sort of one of the big things that comes from the console war is the sort of, and one of the main reasons for brand loyalty for PlayStation is the exclusives. So Daniel, talk to us about the exclusives, these games that you can only play on PlayStation, and probably one of the big reasons why PlayStation has become so well known.
All right. I guess we could go ahead and start with the PS2 era. Xbox.
Oh yeah, man. You can go wherever you want, bro. I'm not stopping you.
Yeah, like right around Xbox was still, planning to ship out their system into the market. We came out with Metal Gear Solid 2, Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo, Devil May Cry, which was a Sony exclusive for the first 3 games. Silent Hill 1 and 2. Let's see, what was that? I don't remember. What was it called? Siphon Filter, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That was another good one. And we were already having these games coming out. Oh, especially Kingdom Hearts. Like, that was a Sony exclusive as well for a while.
That was for PlayStation 2 era, as I recall.
Yeah.
It was just for Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 was only on PlayStation, and the spin-offs were only on Nintendo handhelds at the time as well.
Mm-hmm. So we got the 3 where it's like everybody.
Yeah, and then PS3 comes out. We're starting to get the Uncharted series. We're starting to see Resistance. Ratchet and Clank's looks on the graphics. It became so like an actual movie. It's almost comparable to a Pixar film. And I think one of the biggest games that he had was Metal Gear Solid 4 because the game was so massive that it was impossible to put on the Xbox unless they sell it with 8 discs at retail.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I did not know that actually.
I remember hearing it was one of those games that came with multiple discs, kind of like LA Noire, Red Dead, apparently.
I mean, yeah, that's Red Dead now. Well, I thought it was as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty good, I can say.
Yeah, and I think one game you forgot to mention, Daniel, was a lot of also God of War. But I was gonna say, PlayStation was one of those places where you would find like these rare Japanese games you would not find in something like an Xbox.
Yeah, like the PS2 was a niche console too for those kind of titles. Okay, I wouldn't call it PS2 niche, but it was a console to go for niche games. For this guy, Persona at the time, Shin Megami Tensei 3. Yeah, and it goes on like I said because
Well, it's because it's a Japanese console. That's why you would find a lot of Japanese games, and these games are so like impressive that most will try to import them into the U.S. audience, and then you get that niche because I don't know any guy who's took the time to. I wouldn't say Kingdom Hearts, maybe Final Fantasy. I feel like Kingdom Hearts was more easier for people who've never played games.
Yeah.
Well, not considering the gameplay. The gameplay was a little tough.
Yeah, even then, when you compare to the GameCube too, which was at the time, it had a fair share of titles that niche players will want to get. The biggest one that comes to mind is Phantasy Star Online, which is the only online game for the GameCube.
And Joe, you have any thoughts on these exclusives when it comes to Sony?
I mean, yeah, if we're talking about the exclusives for Sony, I think one we kind of got that came from the PS3 era was The Last of Us. That was
that's right. That was
a really big one for the time. But yeah, it's there's just a lot of it had a lot, I think, of appeal, and that's half the reason why I think, at least in the PS2 era, the PS2 became it's still, I think, the highest selling console of all time.
And I think the biggest thing for PlayStation 2 is most of the fighting games that everyone wants to play is on PlayStation.
I mean, your big games didn't come out. Your big fighting games didn't come out till way later. If you wanted a fighting game, a good fighting game like Tekken, which was big around that time, it was going to be on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it was on X. Was Tekken on Xbox?
I don't think it was. I think the only fighting game that Namco released at the time was Soul Calibur, and on the Xbox version you could play as Spawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the GameCube was Link, and then PS2 was Heihachi. But yeah, when you think of the fighting games at the time, you're going to think of Mortal Kombat or Smash Brothers because those were the biggest fighting games at the time. But
yeah, we didn't get Street Fighter 4, which this is kind of like a FGC history lesson. You'll
have the smaller fighting games such as Guilty Gear,
which started off like a lot of like you said earlier, niche markets. That the fighting community didn't get hit high again until Street Fighter 4, which came out during the PS3 360 era of the consoles. So that's kind of like what we've kind of got nowadays. All these fighting game renaissance. But essentially, considering the games that PlayStation has, like you said, a lot of fighting games are probably going to be on PlayStation. A lot of Go games are going to be on PlayStation. And I think that's kind of like the market that they've made. It's because like whenever you hear great games, you kind of always associate with PlayStation. And they've kept that for so long, and that's one of the reasons why you find so many people kind of coming to PlayStation. They have that sort of brand recognition of like having great games and games that like catch your eye. Like I can tell you how many times I've known guys who like would play PlayStation just for like God of War and stuff like that, or whatever exclusivity they have, or like extra nudge that makes you want to go buy that game for PlayStation. So now this has mostly been a PlayStation talk. Let's head on to Xbox. Like I said earlier, Xbox came out in 2001 with not that many recognizable games except for maybe Halo. But let's talk about why people tend to go with Xbox, or at least to a point defend Xbox. Daniel?
Let's see. Well, I think it's because I think most people like started to like defend Xbox more when we head to the era of PS3 and 360 because PS3 it was coming out a year later after the 360. The 360 it was going to have online features and everything more robust than the PS3 as well. When you compare it, it's very different. Yes, you would have to pay out for online on Xbox 360, but when you compare it to the PS3 like online infrastructure, is very different as well. Because one on PS3, if you want to talk with your friends, you either have to be outside of a game or you have to be playing the same game at the same time. Xbox, you could be like playing your own thing while your friends are playing another thing, and you won't have to worry about like having to play the same game or not to chat with each other. And then there was that awful moment, that PlayStation Network outage.
That's right. I totally forgot about that situation where like PlayStation was just out in terms of like online play. But yeah,
that was a terrible time. And what really made it worse was like around the time when that happened, a lot of publishers and everything they were trying to make this trend of online passes where you had to redeem a code in order to play online. But that's another story. But yeah, I think the reason people are starting to hop on to Xbox more is because the 360 was out at the time. People were going on there. The online was better on the 360 compared to the PS3. And when the next generation hits, people they didn't want to switch. They didn't want to switch sides, but you have to make a choice too. Like either stay with the console or like risk us.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that and like the known fuck ups that both PlayStation and Xbox have done in this conversation. But Joey, what are your thoughts on like why people have come to enjoy the Xbox?
Yeah, I definitely do think focusing on the sort of online aspect are definitely a big thing, especially with the 360. I also just think, I think this is where Xbox definitely started to try to like create more exclusives for them to like entice people to come over. I think one of the biggest ones was the Gears of War franchise.
That's right. Gears of War did start off in 360.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure it was a launch title for the 360 as well.
Yeah.
First one. But it's I think they definitely pushed the boundaries in terms of like online capabilities and just sort of like making stuff like easier for people in gaming. And I do agree that because it was released earlier, then obviously like people who want to play like next gen games are gonna be like, well, we gotta like if you want to play any next gen game, we either stick with we either wait for the PS3 or we can all just hop on 360. So yeah, it was I think that sort of like helped. I think with this brand loyalty thing, as well as I think one of the biggest things that happened during the 360 era was this weird sort of exclusivity deal, kind of with the Call of Duty games.
That's right.
Yeah, the map packs, I think a month ahead of PS3.
Yeah. I think this was like the start of like that sort of trend where like certain game developers would give certain early access stuff to different consoles, and like Activision did it with Call of Duty, and it was like one of like probably one of the big driving forces for more Xbox purchases as well.
There's that's where you find a lot of people just playing. I remember, and they make jokes about this now about like oh man, people can't handle Xbox 360 chats because they're so toxic or whatever. But that's because like there were so many people with so many different varieties. I knew guys who like played on PlayStation for a while, but they're like, damn, I wish I had like a 360 so I can like play with like all my friends, because that's where you knew like all the interest was on the 360. A lot of people came in playing the games on 360, especially the shooters, because this is the rise of the shooters. Like, not saying like Halo and Gears specifically for Xbox weren't popular. They were popular. If some people say that Halo 2 kind of inspired the whole online play the way they've done it for Xbox for all this time, but it wasn't until Call of Duty that everyone got on it. And was it Modern Warfare? The one?
Yeah, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was like the big one.
That was the big one that got everyone's attention and started playing online. And now, and because like you guys said, they started off early, they had better, online play. So of course you're gonna want to play this game that everyone, especially your friends, are playing on the system that is gonna be there. And so, yeah. Now, I mean, like, talking about some funny stuff. Moving on to like more of like where they, why some people are kind of against the other. You know, Daniel, what do you think is the reason why some people just don't want to agree with PlayStation or don't want to go into PlayStation? Well, not considering now current gen before new gen.
Well, I want to say like maybe it's just because of the games. At first, when the 360 came out and PS3, comparing the games that they had at the time, the 360 had a lot more games that are going on, while the PS3, we were having a drought of games that weren't that interesting or doesn't appeal to the player base at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I would say the reason they didn't want to switch is because their friends, they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to like lose all their games and stuff. I think the Xbox One backwards compatible at the time, or did it update it later?
It didn't. It got updated later.
Okay. But I would say like the biggest reason is that they already have their stuff. They don't feel like switching because it's more of a hassle, and they have to get another space for a console.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just because they just don't. I just don't know how to describe it. I have it in my head, but I just can't describe it.
Mm-hmm. So while you're thinking, Joey, what are your reasons as to why people just don't want to? People have like people have something against say like PlayStation as a brand.
I think it's sometimes there are moments. I think it's I think it's definitely sort of like for moments of PlayStation doing rather Sony doing things that are questionable. I think one of the biggest examples
Mm-hmm.
of like sort of people maybe not liking Sony for the decisions with the PlayStation was I think the crossplay thing initially, because
Which happened during this generation during the PlayStation 4, right?
yeah, which is like a huge like kind of debate thing. I think it started with like Fortnite and Rocket League.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Rocket League developers had implemented crossplay with like PC, Xbox One. I think they were trying to do it for Switch as well. And I think they mentioned that like we could do crossplay with like Xbox and PS4, but it's like the infrastructure is there, but Sony won't give us the green light to do such a thing, which definitely caused a bit of an uproar. But at the same time, like it's understandable that the Sony wouldn't want crossplay between two different consoles, mainly through the idea of like if they want to play, if you want your friends to play with you, they should get our console, right? Yeah. So it's for them. It was sort of like it just boosts their sales and forces others to,
They sound very company-like.
Yeah, it's a very company maneuver. It's understandable from a company perspective, but like from a consumer perspective, it is sort of like since you can clearly get it through like PC and stuff like that, and like they're adding it to the Switch later on, it's sort of just like well, then you're just kind of like limiting your player base. I mean, there's a lot of like reasons for and against, and obviously, I think Sony has sort of backtracked that sort of stance.
Yeah, I think it was after the Fortnite comments that
where they sort of like, okay, let's just actually do this process stuff. I think as well, like one of the big controversies of that too was like the justifications that the PlayStation team was giving.
They didn't want to hurt their.
Well, no, it was like you knew I think most people knew that they were doing it just for the money's sake. But like, I think one of the justifications was like, yeah, we just want to protect kids and make sure they're not doing it and interacting with things. Like, what are you on about? Are you implying that all the other like consoles have like dangerous like people on them? Or it seems kind of like crazy. But yeah, I think stuff like that, and I think some other things. I can't. I probably won't go into it just because it probably doesn't really. You might go a bit off topic, but there are certain things that Sony has done with the PlayStation brand that I think people might just be like,
Yeah, I think one thing we all both forgot to mention is that at the time, PlayStation was kind of greedy, especially during the PS3 era.
Yeah, with
was it $600?
The initial price for the PlayStation 3, I think, was probably $600.
Okay, so I wouldn't say they were greedy with the PS3 launch. Their plan was that they'll build this big, powerful console, and hopefully over time, just like a brand new high def TV or 4K and stuff, the prices to make these systems they would go down, so they could afford it to make it cheaper over time. They did it They did it at a wrong time, so it took them a while for them to cut down the price to I think I got my PS3 for $250. So it was a while until like actually went and bought the console itself.
Yeah, and like I knew that kind of hurt a lot of what they did because I don't know that many people that were like willing to waste or spend that kind of money, especially if you're adding on like a game which usually is like $600, 770 if like But did I say 600? I meant 60.
Yeah.
I meant
$99.
Yeah, and so it's like that's almost $700 now. That's a very questionable, especially if you're like a parent who's like trying to buy their kid like the new system, and you're like, Mom, I want to buy a PS3, and they're like, Sweetie, that's like $700. Can I just get you a 360? The God of War kind of stuff, and that's kind of the thing that I've always had like an issue with Sony is like they always seem kind of like not to say like personally. I mean, personally for me, I feel like most of those games I can live without. God of War to me was always kind of cool, but I wasn't into like probably the more recent God of War I was like really into, and then like recently Spider Man. I got Spider Man in the background, guys. Come on, but it's the only reason I can probably go into now. 360, I feel like Xbox, I feel like gets a lot more hate nowadays in this whole console war. And Daniel, I think you can start us off as to did you ever find out what you wanted to say, or you just forgot about it?
Yeah, I guess. I think I found out. So basically, I think the reason people want to stay with Xbox instead of PlayStation is that PlayStation they can be very anti-consumer at times. For example, backwards compatibility. We didn't have it at first. Xbox, they done it with updates over time to eventually now it plays 360 in the original Xbox games. Well, Sony, they didn't really show any interest in it. So I figured myself, like, okay, so PS3, it was a high-end console at the time, and its infrastructure is completely different and very difficult to develop for. At the beginning, how like some games looked a little rough because they weren't that well adjusted to developing games for PS3 at the time. But okay, I can live without PS3. I'll keep it. Maybe I can still play PS2 or PS1 games. None of that whatsoever. Instead, PlayStation they rather push their service called PS Now, which is kind of like their streaming version, their streaming service. So if you wanted to play this PS3 game or PS4 game, you could pay this service just to play these games online, which which is fair. Okay, fine, you can do that, but the fact of I have to subscribe to a service that I'm not interested in, to play these games from previous generations, that kind of hurts me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I was gonna let you finish. Go ahead.
yeah, and people are starting to be afraid that Sony might be a little too invasive into what they want on their consoles now.
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't remember if there was an article about it somewhere, but I remember hearing that during the PS2 era, Sony, they were trying to push more of those 3D sort of games. So they didn't want to see any more like 2D side scrolling or platforming kind of games anymore. So they were telling developers like, nah, well, we don't really want to focus on that. We want to focus on the more this 3D stuff. Just recently with the PS4, basically they were saying like, okay, these are the new guidelines, and you can't have this kind of content in your games anymore. And this became very problematic too for for a lot of developers, including developers in Japan as well, because I believe they moved their headquarters all the way to California now. So if the developers wanted to speak with someone with a Sony representative, they would have to be up late at night because they're over there at night. It's daytime over here in the States.
Yeah.
So they have to be up at a late hour. They have to discuss with them and wait for a feedback. And if they get approved, that's great. If they don't get approved, that's bad because there's going to be more development time into adjusting what things they approve or don't approve of. And developers, especially small ones, they're finding it very. They think it's terrible and they think it's very ridiculous how the system works. Just how to put all this stuff just to get into what Sony likes. So I guess you could say like they can be anti-consumer at times, and they can be a little problematic for some developers as well.
Well, that's not the same for now. I think nowadays they're kind of in a better spot with a lot of developers and consumers. Well, maybe not consumers, but more or less developers. If you consider what they're trying to do with the PS5.
Yeah, possibly.
So let's move on to like why people shit on Xbox. I think it's gonna take up a lot more time because like we just summed up with this current generation of the Xbox One, which was, oh boy, that can be just said the least. You want to start us off, Daniel? How people just come to dislike Xbox basically over this one generation?
All right, so let's start with the first mistake, I guess. So the console at the time when it first announced had to be always online, no used games. You must have the Kinect connected at all times. And let me see. I think that's just about it. Right before the launch of it.
You also got to remember the comments made by what was he? He wasn't the head of Xbox, was he?
Yeah, I think he was.
Oh.
It was Don Matrick, I think it was his name.
Yeah, the comments he made around the always online aspect was.
I remember what he said. Well, for those that don't have online, connection or any form of internet, we have a product for them. It's called Xbox 360.
Yeah, it's just you're essentially selling to your consumer, which is not a good idea. And you forgot one thing, Daniel. They try to be more about. They try to take control more of your TV room. Like they try to implement all these stuff that was like, hey, look, you can do all this stuff with your TV through the Xbox, and I'm just like, why? And they had a whole conference for this to announce the Xbox, where they showed off the model and for what was it, like a 40-minute introduction or like conference.
I don't recall. It was so long ago, but yeah, it was a huge focus on the Xbox One being like the center of your entertainment room. Like
that's why it was called the One.
Yeah, it was like you could plug your TV into it. You could like do all this stuff for like TV and stuff like that, and it was not well received. I'm pretty sure it was later said that half the reason, like one of the big reasons why they went so hard on this sort of like big thing is that you kind of forget that Xbox is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft, one of their biggest rivals is Apple, and I think this was around the time when Apple was talking about the Apple TV. So I think for Microsoft, they just thought, hey, we already have like a way to like maybe try to get to TV space, your entertainment space before Apple, and we could use the Xbox to do that. So I think that was definitely sort of like one of the big like things about it, like one of the main influencing factors as to why the Xbox was planning to launch in such a way. Granted, they did roll back a lot of that stuff like before launch and the months later because they quickly realized, no, we're not going to do well.
I could have sworn if they dropped the guy midway into like before the release.
I think they did get rid of Don Matrick.
Like after E3, right?
What happened?
Like the Don Matrick, they'd let him go after E3, right?
I don't know what happened with Don Matrick. I think he just resigned because I know he's with Zynga now. But yeah, like I still remember like that same day on Xbox's E3 conference, like stocks for Microsoft went down fast. So it's like,
and like they showed off games that were like impressive. It was just like during the E3, but it was just like you couldn't get that foul taste out of your mouth when it came to the whole DRM, policies. Connect always online. Oh yeah, I forgot the Connect was supposedly always watching you or something like that. That was like a rumor they spread.
Yeah.
Which was like creepy in itself, and I was always like, I better give them a good show then.
Yeah.
That was always my response to that.
They didn't really show the games that we wanted to see.
Especially for that first conference until it was E3. Because go ahead, Dan.
The only thing I remember from like the introduction conference, they just showed off Call of Duty, but there was no gameplay. It was just showing like, oh, look at that pretty graphics we're doing with it now. And then, they were just showing off, I think, Madden and then 2K. And it's like, okay, it's basketball and football, just with better graphics. I know what I'm expecting with Madden or 2K games.
And they focused so much on the TV aspect. That's what really hurt it. But I think even then, when they started pulling back on those talks, that even then people still felt sort of that I knew some people that felt like, wait, aren't you got that Xbox One? Doesn't it have all this in them? Like, no, they backtracked a lot. That people still had that sort of, perception that was going on. Heck, probably Sony's PlayStation's most famous video at the moment isn't a gameplay trailer or isn't any announcement. It was them making fun of their game share option. Like, Xbox, you can't share games. Once it's locked in there, it's locked in there. So I can't give Daniel my copy of what Halo, whatever, because like it's only logged onto my computer and it won't let him play it. So Sony went ahead and made this video, this fun little sketch of two dudes who's like, this is how you share a game.
Yeah, it was one handing a
yeah, it was one dude handing another guy a game, and that's it. It was just making fun of the whole Xbox doesn't fucking share games. And ever since that day, and plus not to mention the design and the price tag for Xbox is what really hurt it too. Because I wasn't able to still like $600.
No, it was $500.
Ooh.
And the PS4 was selling at $400.
Yeah, like thing what he did before with the Sega Saturn at the time. They came out and said it's $100 cheaper, and that just made it way more appealing.
Mm-hmm. And like ever since, I think Xbox has been really struggling, especially considering this generation there wasn't that many exclusives. Like there was Gears and there was Halo, but they weren't as popular, or like they took too long to come out. Fable was another big game that they've announced, but that got canceled.
Yeah.
Scalebound.
That still hurts me.
That hurts me every day. Well, and if you watch like any of like development of that game, you'd be like, I kind of understand why they canceled it. It wasn't gonna work, but it would have been so badass.
And like the games that came out at launch, it was pretty decent. We had Dead Rising 3. They came out the creators of Ratchet and Clank, Insomniac Games, they released
Sunset Overdrive.
for Xbox.
That was a fun game.
That was a fun game, and then Killer Instinct was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Still is. And Rare came out with a collection called Rare Replay, having like 30 games from their history of the company.
Well, that one took a little longer, but there's also the whole Timefall. Timefall came out first on Xbox, the first one, and that was a fun game. There was a lot of things lacking from it. Even I remember that, but I had a lot of fun with it. But they were all very lackluster.
Yeah, like
for the most part. You go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, some of like the exclusive, like you were saying, Titanfall. Like it was the next big game from the guys that used to work at Infinity Ward making the Call of Duty games. They came out, and Titanfall was just a disappointment. And then like after maybe 1 or 2 years after the console came out, that's when the big giant drought happened and it hit him. And we were left wondering what's the next big Xbox game.
Mm-hmm. And we had the Master Chief Collection, which was fine, but you had so many bugs. How long did it take to download on there?
It's not even like the downloads. It was like matchmaking in general. It like took a long time, to get into matches.
That's right. And it took just now. It's now working pretty good.
Yeah, because they definitely went back to it and like really tweaked everything, and they're still tweaking it even now due to releasing the Master Chief Collection on Steam and PC.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the fault of Xbox. They kind of bit themselves in the, I guess the right word would be they shot themselves in the foot. Because last generation they were so, Xbox was sold very well. Everyone was having an Xbox, so I don't know. They must have had this idea that we're all fine. We'll be fine. They'll accept our brand because we're brand loyal. We have brand loyalty. But this is the moment where so many people started, leaving for PlayStation because they didn't like any of the rules. They were left with a bad taste in their mouth with how everything was done, especially with the main guy. And there wasn't much for people to do. But I mean, I remember back in the day, when PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out, there were people who had a PlayStation jump to Xbox and only going back to PlayStation. I've had those friends and I've known those guys because PlayStation didn't start off with a lot of great games, but they came back with some knockouts like God of War, Spider-Man. What was another game that they came? Uncharted. They came back with those games, and I think that's one of the main reasons why people are so attached to PlayStation because they have the games. Xbox, I feel, has a better service though at the same time.
Yeah, and it didn't help too. Which I still think it was a great decision for Microsoft, where they started releasing their Xbox games on a PC. But most people, they're either like a Nintendo and an Xbox or PS or PlayStation owner, or a PC or a second console owner.
Just we got waiting to do a whole PC Master Race talk. Oh my god.
Yeah, and so since I can get the Master Chief Collection on PC now, and I don't have to pay for Microsoft Xbox Live Gold anymore, why would I want to go back on Xbox One again?
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying. But it's one of those weird things where Xbox is doing this stuff that they're so pro-consumer that it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and which I'm glad that they're doing. That's great choices that they're making, but at the same time, there isn't a lot of games coming out for it, and literally my Xbox is just a Rare Replay player.
Mm-hmm. And I think now we're getting into the whole point of this current gen. What generation is this? 8th, 9th?
We're going into the 9th generation. I would guess, although yeah, I would say it's the 9th generation.
9th generation, right, Daniel?
I think so. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, double check for us, please, because sometimes I forget.
Because I thought the 9th generation was let me see.
But essentially, with I feel like nowadays the whole console war, it's kind of died down. They're all basically just chill with each other. Nowadays you have crossplay, which is something you never think would happen. Heck, Daniel, you, me, and Kelvin, we all played that Power Rangers fighting game, and I'm the only one with an Xbox, and you two have a PlayStation, and yet here we are, all three of us with different systems, playing a fighting game with barely any problems. I say barely because sometimes that game does have a lot of problems, connection issues mostly. But are we in the ninth gen?
We're the 8th generation.
Oh, okay. I was wrong. But
Nintendo Switch is at 9th.
Okay. But the PS5 and Series X are ninth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we go into the ninth generation, this is when we start seeing more of the console war again. People are saying, fuck Xbox, fuck PlayStation, all this kind of stuff, and it's sort of like rising back. And now we start seeing more of this brand loyalty. Like people who are like, whatever with Xbox are like, nah, man, it's all Xbox, and then people who are PlayStation are like, no, it's all PlayStation. Especially with like, the newer stuff they're announcing, and now I think that PlayStation and Xbox kind of know what they're doing, and knowing not to know what to say and what not to say, they're kind of like, this is probably one of the more interesting moments of this sort of console war idea. I don't know. I guess let you guys take the rest.
Yeah, like right now, I don't really see a lot of hostility. I mean, you do, but right now with PlayStation, they mostly have their hostility towards PC players because, just recently, what was it? Horizon Zero Dawn that came out recently onto the PC, and surprisingly, there are a few extreme diehard PlayStation fans that are against the idea of that. Why? I mean, don't you want to mod stuff into your games?
Well, it's brand loyalty. It's like we were saying. It's like basically what we were talking about the whole time. That's a game that was primarily on PlayStation. It's the reason you're proud to be a PlayStation owner. Yeah. Kind of like how Xbox are proud to be, or Halo fans are proud to be Xbox owners.
Yeah. So
the moment it jumps on there, it's like heresy kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think literally the last time where like a console war sort of mattered, but it didn't even matter that much back then either. It was during the 360 and PS3 era. PS3, they would get some stuff that was only available on their console. Same thing, vice versa with the 360. For example, like Mortal Kombat 9, you get to play as Kratos and on the PS3 version. What does Xbox get?
Nothing.
Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing, underrated racing game. On Xbox, you could play as Banjo-Kazooie. What does PlayStation get?
Don't they get really? They don't get a Crash?
No, like even if they wanted to, Crash belongs to Activision now.
Oh, okay,
yeah, and Batman: Arkham Asylum. There was like a map where you could play as the Joker. You couldn't do that on the 360.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
the only time you would say it is like, no, you want to get on PlayStation because we get all these cool exclusive modes and stuff you could do, or no, you got to be on Xbox. You get all this cool extra stuff. And even then, it didn't really affect the game that much unless you're playing something like MK9, and you get an extra.
I mean, I've seen more of it. I've seen it more now because of the recent announcements of PS5 and Series X. Like whenever there's when PlayStation was done with their whole presidents, there was a huge fuck Xbox. Remember the memes that came out of that, like the trash can meme.
Yeah, the trash can memes.
The fridge and all that stuff. Yeah. And then that kind of sparked the whole thing. And I think people are more inclined. It's around now where people start listening like, are you an Xbox guy or are you a PlayStation guy? It's literally. I'm gonna do a connection that you both are gonna love. It's literally that episode of South Park where they did a Game of Thrones with Xbox and PlayStation.
You mean the whole setup for the game?
Yes. Yeah. It's all meant. That was a great episode.
Yeah.
It was a great episode.
It's an amazing episode.
It was an amazing episode.
Yeah, because friends are talking to each other, say, okay, who are we gonna be playing on this time? Because we all got to be on the same console to play with each other. But honestly, I don't think this should ever be an issue anymore. Because now crossplay is really accepted and it's everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Crossplay has now become a sort of a want in gaming. I think most people that are unaware of it are probably the guys who are still arguing about the PlayStation versus Xbox. Because like I said earlier, you and me, we played Power Rangers.
Yeah, like I was playing Power Rangers on my PS4 while you were on your Xbox.
Like that happened. It's happening. Joey, you and I tested out Rocket League with Xbox One and Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience.
And I remember one party. It was it was a family gathering. It was you, me, and some of our cousins. We all played Rocket League in different systems.
Yeah.
It was like, what? We can do this now?
Yeah.
And there's such an amazing bond there that this is why I say that people who don't know about the whole crossplay thing are probably still the guys who are still arguing about the whole console war thing, because nowadays we kind of want the crossplay. We don't want it on most games, not all games. Like we want them in some games now.
Yeah, I mean, look up Fortnite. As much as I hate to bring it up, but it's almost on everything: mobile, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, PC. All 5 of those different devices can play with each other now.
You're right, and same thing with PUBG. Heck, Apex Legends is on the way to join that.
Yeah, Apex is coming to a Nintendo Switch, which surprised me.
Oh, heck, even the one that's kind of like overtaking Fortnite, Modern Warfare, like their whole battle royale, that's on. You can play that with your PlayStation buddies, Xbox buddies, PC buddies. It's not on Switch yet, is it?
No, I don't think any Call of Duty games on Switch.
Well, the same day. You can do that. Heck, you and one of our family members did that.
Yeah.
You played with him on Warfare, and you were like, "Oh my God, we can do this! Let's get." You got killed immediately.
I mean,
it happens. I was there.
Yeah.
I'm the one that got killed.
Yeah.
But it's fun. That's what I'm saying. Like nowadays, you're just kind of chill. The only reason I see people still complaining about it is people who just don't know it's a thing. Because nowadays I don't know. I've been seeing comments, especially on Twitter, when it comes to, because like I said earlier, at the time of this recording, either it has happened or hasn't. The Xbox showcase. I've seen PlayStation owners go like, "Come on, Xbox, I want you to do good. I want some healthy competition." You don't see. You never thought 10 years ago you wouldn't thought that would happen.
No.
You'd see a PlayStation guy supporting a Halo game. What? Is this the wrong timeline?
It's like, oh my God, did we just step into a different parallel universe? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like we're now in a time where a lot of gaming is still coming together, but people still want that sort of competition, which is fine. I think that's what kind of the console wars have become now, just healthy competition. Between Xbox and PlayStation. Heck, Stadia, you can have Stadia, you can have Nintendo on there, but we're all just now chill because we're all gamers. We all want to enjoy our games.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, I guess, in terms of like how these console wars are seen in this gaming community.
Yeah, heck, I'll never forget the moment where they had the presidents of both PlayStation, Xbox, and Sony all together in one room. Everyone was like, "Yo, are you guys about to announce something cool?"
No, it was just a thing of like
solidarity and unity. But it meant something, and that's kind of like where we are now. If you're on Switch and you're on Xbox and you're on PlayStation and you want to play a game, pull up the Fortnite or whatever. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think that's about all we can say about this whole console war. It's like, because I'm pretty sure we're all kind of neutral on it.
I mean, yeah, like I really don't have a problem. I wish Xbox could come out with more cool games because
we'll wait for this Thursday.
Yeah, because I think the last Xbox game I ever bought was Quantum Break.
Oh my god, I forgot about Quantum Break. And that was a pretty solid game, as I recall.
I guess. I mean, it never interested me whatsoever.
No.
So
It was weird.
I thought it was okay. I thought it could have been better. I think it was kind of like cheesy that they make gameplay with like TV episodes of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, they try to do something with it. But I mean, like you said, we have to wait and see, how this turns out. I think, as I said, we're at this point where, like, we're all just fine with it. We're all kind of neutral now. I mean, the only ones that are still at it or like and being negative toward each other are people who just can't, who either just don't. I guess none of the nice way to say it is, they haven't accepted it yet. And we're all kind of like gamers. We all want to come together and all come and play. And that's why Sony got their shit on because like they were like no crossplay and we're not gonna do a Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo. And the level of hate they got was like, okay, never mind, we're gonna do crossplay, guys. Calm down. But, we all just want to come together and play.
yeah,
It's a healthy community, kind of, sort of.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm. Listen, all I'm saying, Joey, that Banjo for next gen. Come on now.
and it's not gonna happen.
Why you gotta do this?
I mean, I'm just, I'm just
Being
I'm
realistic.
Just, I'm just being realistic.
We'll wait and see. But no, guys, this has been our talk about the whole console wars, brand, loyalty when it comes to it. This is more of a chill talk because, I think because we don't have a say on each side. We're all pretty neutral about it. But we can talk, but we both see, all three of us have seen both sides of the arguments. Some good, some bad. Some that are, that's kind of understandable. Some that are like, okay, dude, you need to calm down. They stopped doing the DRM policy like months ago. Calm down, because I've met those people and it annoys me every day. But we're at a point where we're all just having fun, and you can be a PlayStation guy, Nintendo guy, Xbox guy, PC Master Race, whatever you want to call it. We're all just here to have fun. But that's the end of this episode, and we're here to say our goodbyes. So, if you are listening to us, please hit us with a 5-star on iTunes. Be sure to check us out on other podcasting platforms from Spotify, like I said earlier, iTunes, Pandora, Castbox, and Google Play. If you're watching the video version of this episode on YouTube, please hit us with a subscribe to us. Hit the bell icon. Hit us with a like. Comment, subscribe. Comment, subscribe. All that good stuff to help us, get to where we, get us to better places. We also have a Patreon. So we want to do a lot of cool stuff, guys. We can only do so much in these trying times. So even a little bit is good enough for us. We're all trying to do our best now. And social media, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we always try to update with you guys about our new episodes coming out and anything cool that's going on right now. Who knows what we'll come up with. And that's about it, right?
Yeah, I think that's the end of the episode. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I usually have Kelvin doing it, but he's kind of sick at the moment, so he doesn't want to bother people with his bathroom kind of stuff. But yeah. So it's been a good episode. So let's all give our sends off. Starting off with you, Daniel.
All right, this was Daniel.
It's been me, Joe.
It's been your boy Eli. We've been the Geek Centurions, and yeah, have a nice one. Peace.